Welcome everybody to the Wilmette Institute's July web talk for 2017. We're very pleased today to have Dr. Sohrab Kourosh speaking about the Kitáb-i-Íqán, revolutionizing the concepts of religion, eschatology, and theology. Perhaps I should begin with a little bit of introduction about the Wilmette Institute itself. This is information you hear every time you tune into this web talk, but it changes a little bit. Of course, the Wilmette Institute is now over 22 years old. We were established by a decision of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States in 1995. We ran a face-to-face program for 10 years. When that ended, we then were able to transition to online because we had already started online courses in 1998 to supplement the face-to-face courses. Too many people were unable to get to Wilmette for, say, 2 or 3 weeks of classes and staying in a dormitory and all that. It was too expensive. I just updated our statistics, and we are currently at 423 courses and approximately 11,378 registrations for those courses. That does not include the Kitáb-i-Íqán course that starts on Tuesday, which already has 25 registered in it. So that would be our course number 424. Currently, we've had students from 122 different countries, and we're always happy to see that number go up. About 15% of our students are from outside the US. And those students have been able to do countless presentations to classes, at feasts, to study circles, on the radio, all kinds of different venues where they've been able to use their Wilmette Institute course experience and the knowledge to share the faith with other people. In addition to these web talks, which we started in 2015 on our 20th anniversary, we are now also doing deepened webinars, and we're beginning to do more and more different kinds of web video. We're considering some public discourse type videos as well. We're also publishing materials on our website, and now as of June, we have students at the United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities taking some of our courses for credit. 6 of our courses are now available through UTS for credit, which is a very exciting development, and we hope that Baha'is who are in college will consider approaching their universities and seeing if they can arrange to take one of our core courses for credit. Meanwhile, today, of course, I need to introduce Dr. Sohrab Kourosh, who I think if you look at his credentials here, you'll be really quite surprised. I don't know very many people who have degrees in rocket design, a law degree in environmental law, and are also involved in biomedical research. Quite a remarkable range of experience that Dr. Kourosh has. He's the vice president and senior environmental scientist of an environmental consulting company, I believe in the Dallas area, if I remember right. And he's published quite a few different books and articles on Baha'i subjects. He already spoke a bit on the 7 Valleys for us about a month and a half ago. And his new book on the Kitáb-i-Íqán really is the subject. It's a self-study guide, is the subject of today's program. He just told me he's also considering working on a volume about Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. But meanwhile, let's turn the program over to Dr. Kourosh and hear his presentation on the Kitáb-i-Íqán.
Good afternoon, dear friends. The subject of our discussion today is Kitáb-i-Íqán, revolutionizing the concept of religion, eschatology, and theology. I need to make a disclaimer that in this presentation, I'll try to minimize the impact of personal interpretation of the sacred text, and if of necessity, a statement or explanation that I make borders on interpretation, I request that it be regarded solely as my individual interpretation, which lacks any authority. What is the Kitáb-i-Íqán, the Book of Certitude? Guardian states that Iran is the most important book written on the spiritual significance of the cause. Bahá'u'lláh called it the Lord of the Books, and in his last major work, Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, he says that briefly there had been revealed in Kitáb-i-Íqán, the Book of Certitude, concerning the presence and revelation of God that which will suffice fair-minded people. In Kitáb-i-Íqán, he states that all scriptures and mysteries are condensed into this brief account. And so much that if a person ponder it for a while in his heart, he would discover for all that had been said the mysteries of Word of God, and would apprehend the meaning of whatever had been manifested by that ideal king. In the introduction to the first epistle, to the first English translation of the Kitáb-i-Íqán, in 1904, Abdu'l-Bahá wrote, "O thou who art athirst for the water of life, this manifest book is the fountainhead of the water of eternal life. Drink so much as thou art able from the fountain of living water. O thou who art seeking after the knowledge of God, immerse thyself in the ocean of the explanation of the beauty of the Merciful, so that thou mayest gather from its depths the pearls of wisdom of God." Shoghi Effendi, in describing the place, significance, style of Kitáb-i-Íqán, has given a summary of the themes of Kitáb-i-Íqán in God Passes By. He says that foremost among the priceless treasures cast forth from the billowing ocean of Baha'u'llah's revelation ranks the Kitáb-i-Íqán Book of Certitude, revealed in the space of 2 days and 2 nights. It was written in fulfillment of the prophecy of the Bab, who had specifically stated that the promised one would complete the text of the unfinished Persian Bayan. The Bayan is the mother book of the Baha'i dispensation. There are 2 Bayan books. One is Arabic Bayan and one is Persian Bayan. The Persian Bayan is the most significant of writings of the Bab, and it was supposed to have 19 waheds, or parts or units, each wahed having 19 chapters. However, it was only completed to the 10th chapter of the 9th wahed by the Bab. And the Bab prophesied that the Bayan would be completed by the promised one. The Kitáb-i-Íqán serves as fulfillment of this prophecy and is considered to be completion of the waheds of the Persian Bayan. This book, setting forth the grand redemptive scheme of God, occupies a position unequaled by the works in the entire, by any work in the entire range of Baha'i literature, except the Kitáb-i-Aqdas, Baha'u'llah's most holy book. Revealed on the eve of declaration of his mission, it proffered to mankind the choice sealed wine, whose seal is of musk, and broke the seals of the book referred by Daniel. Book of Daniel in the Old Testament has 12 chapters, and chapter 8 and chapter 12 are containing prophecies and chronology of the first advent of Christ and the second advent of Christ. And in chapter 12, Daniel explaining that he had a vision, that he was on a bank of a river and was speaking to the Lord. And he says that, and I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. So the meaning of the books being sealed means that the followers of the religions could not understand the symbols and allegorical statements in their holy scripture, so the scripture was sealed to them. And Baha'u'lláh, by revealing the Kitáb-i-Íqán, he opened up all the mysteries of the sacred books, so he practically unsealed the sacred books of the past, and that's what Daniel says, that it will be sealed until the time of the end, when Baha'u'lláh came and unsealed the holy books of the past. Well may it be claimed that of all the books revealed by the author of the Baha'i revelation, this book alone, by sweeping away the age-long barriers that have so insurmountably separated the great religions of the world, has laid down a broad and unassailable foundation for the complete and permanent reconciliation of their followers. Baha'u'llah's writings are characterized by different forms and styles, each suitable for the content and purpose of its revelation. If a tablet or treatise was addressed to a particular person or a special cultural group, cultural particularities and language of that personal group were taken in consideration. That's why we find very many references to Quran or Islamic subjects, but Baha'u'lláh keeps Kitáb-i-Íqán a universal book. He discusses all the subjects that pertain to other religions as well. In this respect, Baha'u'lláh states, at one time we spoke in the language of lawgiver, at another in that of the truth seeker and the mystic, and yet our supreme purpose and highest wish had always been to disclose the glory and sublimity of this station. So we know that the Kitāb-i-Aqdas is revealed in the language of the lawgiver. The Kitāb-i-Íqán is revealed in the language of truth seeker. The seven valleys is revealed in the language of mystic. Regarding the style of the Kitāb-i-Íqán, Shoghi Effendi states a model of Persian prose, of a style at once original, chaste and vigorous, and remarkably lucid, both cogent in argument and matchless in irresistible eloquence. Let's now briefly discuss the historical background of its revelation. The Kitāb-i-Íqán was revealed in Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, which was part of the Ottoman Empire. It was revealed in 1862, approximately 1 year before Baha'u'llah's public declaration in the Garden of Rizwan. It is assumed by some Baha'i scholars that have written about Kitāb-i-Íqán that Kitāb-i-Íqán fulfilled the dual purpose of proving the truth of the Bab's claim and also of preparing the ground for Baha'u'llah's own public declaration. These are all true, but Kitāb-i-Íqán is much more than just these two issues. On historical background, we know that His Holiness the Bab had three maternal uncles, Haji Mirza Sayyid Muhammad, Haji Mirza Sayyid Ali, Haji Mirza Sayyid Hassan Ali. Haji Mirza Sayyid are honorific titles. Sayyid is specifically referred to people who are descendants of Prophet Muhammad, and the family of the Bab were descendants of Prophet Muhammad through Fatima, his daughter, and Ali, his cousin and son-in-law. And the male descendants of the family were called imams, spiritual leaders. His second uncle, Mirza Sayyid Ali, also known as Khal Azam, the greatest uncle, who was the uncle who raised him after the passing of his father, was the only one of his uncles to have embraced his cause at the time of his martyrdom. Haji Mirza Sayyid Ali was a prominent merchant in Shiraz. When the Bab was incarcerated in the castle of Chehrir, he went to Chehrir and visited the Bab. And on his way back to Shiraz, he came to Tehran and he was arrested with some other followers of the Bab. When the prominent merchants of Tehran heard about his arrest, they went to chief magistrate and they said that we are ready to pay the ransom for his release. The chief magistrate said that he will agree to do that if he accepts to recant his faith. So they brought him to the presence of chief magistrate, and he said that, I'm ready to release you if you recant your faith. And the uncle of the Bab, Haji Mirza Sayyid Ali, said that if you knew the Bab the way that I know, you would go forward from me to sacrifice yourself in his path. And I'm not going to recant my faith. So he was martyred with other Baha'is, Babis in Tehran. And historically, they are referred to as the 7 martyrs of Tehran. Aware of the special qualities that the Bab possessed since earlier childhood, Haji Mirza Sayyid Ali was the first to embrace the cause of the Bab in Shiraz after the letters of the living, and he was himself, as I said, martyred after the Bab in Tehran. The Bab's eldest uncle, Haji Mirza Sayyid Muhammad, had great respect for his nephew's integrity and spirituality. Yet, despite his admiration for the Bab, he did not recognize the station of the Bab for many years. Although he was a devout and practicing Muslim, and their family was known for their piety and charity, after they were identified with the cause of the Bab, he and his brother were subject of discrimination by their business associates. And after the brother was also killed as a follower of the Bab, a supporter of the Bab, that intensified. For several years, he did not want to discuss the Bab and his cause with anyone. However, once when he was engaged in a series of discussion with Agha Mirza Nuruddin, Nuruddin was a close relative of Bab. He was the nephew of the Bab, the son of the Bab's sister-in-law, the sister of wife of the Bab. And he and his aunt, the wife of the Bab, were followers of the Bab and believers in the Bab. When he was in discussion with Nuruddin, he was forced to reconsider his position. And during discussion, he said that he could not simply believe that his own nephew was the promised one. Then Mirza Nuruddin compared him to Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab was one of the uncles of the Bab. Abu Lahab means the father of fire. And he, Abu Lahab, and some other uncles were the aristocracy of Mecca at the time of Muhammad. And they saw that Muhammad's new religion is threatening their idol house and their religion. So they rose against him. And Abu Lahab was saying that he could not believe that his nephew could be a prophet of God. So Haji Sayyid Muhammad, the uncle of the Bab, was understandably shaken by this comparison and asked Nuruddin what he should do to convince himself of the validity of the Bab's claim. Mirza Nuruddin suggested that he go on pilgrimage to Iraq. While there, visit his sister, the mother of the Bab, who had been living there since the martyrdom of her son, because she has had some sacred places in Iraq, and then go to Baghdad in order to attain the presence of Bahá'u'lláh and ask his questions of him. So Sayyid Muhammad lived in Shiraz and wrote to his younger brother, Sayyid Hassan Ali, that was living in Yazd, another city in Iran, if he wanted to join him in his trip. And the younger brother agreed, and they traveled together. But he didn't say the purpose of his trip until they got to Baghdad, and he told the younger brother that he came to Baghdad to go to presence of Bahá'u'lláh. And the younger brother was disturbed, agitated, and although he was younger and always respectful, he started to object and said that he didn't want to go to presence of Baha'u'lláh. At that time, I'd say Jawad Karbala'i, a prominent Baha'i, came to presence of Baha'u'lláh and said that the uncles of the Bab are there in Baghdad, and Baha'u'lláh told him to go bring them to his presence. The next day, Sayyid Jawad Karbala'i came with the uncle of the Bab, and they came to the presence of Baha'u'lláh. Baha'u'lláh showered him with kindness and respect, and while in presence of Baha'u'lláh, Bab's uncle was overwhelmed by his utterances, and in the end beseeched Baha'u'lláh to help him to see the truth of the Bab's message. He said that I cannot convince myself that all the signs and the prophecies have been fulfilled. Baha'u'lláh readily consented to help him and told him to go write his questions and bring it back. So the next day, he came with written questions. The Bab's uncle then returned the next day with 4 categories of questions, all dealing with the coming of the Qa'im. Qa'im is one of the stations claimed by the Bab, and the word means he who arises or the one that is standing. It is the title of the promised one of Islam, whose advent coincides with the day of resurrection. The questions have been preserved in papers of Afnan family, and the question Afnan family or the family of the Bab, Baha'u'lláh named them Afnan. The question he asked were following about the day of resurrection, because in Islam, the advent of the promised one is coincident with the day of resurrection. He asked what's happening, why we didn't see the day of resurrection. Also, it is prophesied that after advent of the promised one, the world will be filled with justice, the way that it has been filled with injustice before the advent. And he asked, where is that justice? We don't see it. Then the Shia Islam believes that the promised one is the 12th Imam, that in stories that Shia present, this 12th Imam at the age of 6 or 7 went into hiding or occultation, and in a city at the end of the world, and God will bring him to the world coincident with the resurrection. And the uncle said that there are traditions about this, why we don't see that. And then he said that the traditions say that Qa'im should come with the power and authority and rule the world. We don't see, the Bab didn't have the worldly power and authority, and what is that prophecy fulfilled? So in answer to these questions, Baha'u'lláh, within the span of 2 days and 2 nights, revealed what is known today as the Kitáb-i-Íqán, the Book of Certitude, but was in the early days referred to as Risale Khal, epistle to the uncle. The original copy or manuscript of the book was written in the hands of Abdu'l-Bahá, who was 18 years of age at that time. The uncle of the Bab took the book and he left the next day. That was the reason that Kitáb-i-Íqán was revealed in such a short span, was that he was supposed to leave in 2 days. And so the next day he left. And in those days, it would take about a couple of months for the people to get from Baghdad to Shiraz. And in his way, he read Kitáb-i-Íqán and studied it. The Kitáb-i-Íqán dispelled every doubt that Haji Mirza Sayyid Muhammad had harbored. He became a devout believer, and at the end of his life, he acknowledged his belief in the twin manifestations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh in his will and testament. His brother, Haji Mirza Sayyid Hassan Ali, who refused to go to the presence of the Baha'u'lláh, eventually embraced the faith, and he was very sorry to miss that great privilege. The original manuscript of Kitáb-i-Íqán remained with the Afnan family. It was presented to Shoghi Effendi in 1948 by the great-granddaughter of Haji Sayyid Muhammad. It was placed in the International Archives building at the Baha'i World Center on Mount Carmel in Haifa. The Kitáb-i-Íqán was revealed by Bahá'u'lláh in Persian, in Farsi. It was first published in Persian in Bombay, India, in early 1880s. It was first translated into English by Ali Quli Khan Nabiluddoleh, assisted by Howard McNaught, and published under the title The Book of Assurance in New York in 1904. We can now briefly look at the translation. It was later translated into English by Shoghi Effendi, the Kitáb-i-Íqán, under the title The Kitáb-i-Íqán, the Book of Certitude, and first published in 1931 by the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States of America, in the postscript of a letter written by Shoghi Effendi's secretary to the National Spiritual Assembly. Shoghi Effendi just made a postscript on that letter. He states, "Unable to find a good typist, I have had to do the work myself and trust that the proofreaders will find it easy to go over and will not mind the type errors which I have tried to correct. Those of us that visited the house of Abdu'l-Bahá in Haifa, there is a small room that Shoghi Effendi used as his office. There is a small typewriter there, old typewriter that Shoghi Effendi used to type the manuscript of Kitáb-i-Íqán. He says that the correct title is, I feel, the Kitáb-i-Íqán, the subtitle is the Book of Certitude. May it help the friends to approach a step further and obtain a clearer idea of the fundamental teachings set forth by Bahá'u'lláh, and signs Shoghi Effendi. Shoghi. Many of the major writings of Bahá'u'lláh, such as the Gems of Divine Mysteries, the Seven Valleys, the Kitáb-i-Íqán, the Four Valleys, the Kitáb-i-Badi, and Epistle to the Son of Wolf, are written either in response to questions of the believers or in response to opposition to statements by Bahá'u'lláh. But Bahá'u'lláh, in writing those books, he not only responded to those questions or objections, he has revealed many other concepts or dealt with many other issues of a spiritual, eschatological, and theological nature. This is more prominent in Kitáb-i-Íqán. Now look at the major themes of Kitáb-i-Íqán. Regarding the major themes of the book, Shoghi Effendi stated, proclaims unequivocally the existence of a personal God, unknowable, inaccessible, the source of all revelation, eternal, omniscient, omnipresent, and almighty. Asserts the relativity of religious truth and the continuity of divine revelation. Affirms the unity of the prophets, of the universality of their message, the identity of their fundamental teaching, the sanctity of their scriptures, and the twofold character of their stations. Denounces the blindness and the perversity of the divines and the doctors of religions in every age. Cites and elucidates the allegorical passages of the New Testament, the abstruse verses of Quran, and the cryptic Mohammedan traditions which have bred those age-long misunderstandings, doubts, and animosities that have sundered and kept apart the followers of the world's leading religious system. Enumerates the essential prerequisites for attainment by every true seeker of object of his quest. demonstrates the validity, sublimity, and significance of Bab's revelation, acclaims the heroism and detachment of his disciples, foreshadows and prophesies the worldwide triumph of the revelation promised to the people of the Bayan. There are many concepts presented in Kitáb-i-Íqán that are unprecedented in the other sacred scriptures. Many of these concepts presented in Kitáb-i-Íqán are unprecedented in sacred scriptures of the past religions. Some of the concepts that have been mentioned in the religious literature have been given new definition and meaning by Bahá'u'lláh. Bahá'u'lláh states, through the movement of our pen of glory, we have at the bidding of the omnipotent ordainer breathed a new life into every human frame and enlisted into every word a fresh potency. Some of the unprecedented concepts in the Kitáb-i-Íqán are revelation of universal religion, presentation of universal manifestation of God, redefining the eschatology and eschaton, foundation of the Baha'i theology, redefining the concept of divine unity, revealing and expounding the mysteries of the scriptures, attainment unto the divine presence, the essential infallibility of manifestations of God, confirming the ability of manifestations of God to perform miracles, but he says that people are allowed only to ask for one miracle. Some statements for revolutionizing the concept of religion, we can note that some statements in the past scriptures are indicative of the limited mission of the past manifestations and limited the scope of their religion. Some statements in the Old Testament show that the main mission of Moses was to bring the children of Israel out of Egypt to the land of milk and honey. But establishment of the laws and the laws that were revealed in Torah were incidental to this process of bringing them out of Egypt. And this is stated in Exodus chapter 3, verses 9 to 10, that God says exactly that that was the main purpose of Moses. And then some of the Jesus' statement in Gospels indicate that he considered himself as the promised Messiah of Israel, and the inclusion of Gentiles in his faith was a post-Jesus development. For example, it says in Matthew chapter 10, verse 5, these 12 means these 12 disciples. Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the ways of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He, Jesus, answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. A non-Israelite Samaritan woman asked Jesus to help her, and says, answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Although there are many verses in Quran that address all humanity, there was an argument in the early Islamic era, especially before the expansion wars of Islam, that Islam had come primarily for Arabs and for Mecca and its surrounding, which was based on the verse such as this, that God said to Muhammad, it is thus moreover that we have revealed to thee an Arabic Quran, that thou mayest warn the mother city, which was Mecca, and all surrounding it. So in the Kitáb-i-Íqán, Baha'u'lláh presented the concept of universal religion. He says that every religion had the potential to become universal, worldwide. And if it failed, and they failed to do that, it was the failure of the followers that broke the religion, and leaders of religion that broke the religion into sects and parts and and caused it not to be able to become universal. So he says that the revelation of God is for all humanity. There is only one religion, the universal religion of God, eternal in the past, eternal in the future. It integrates and harmonizes all the contending religions of the past as the successive stages of a progressive revelation. He says that the purpose of universal religion is to establish unity, spiritualize, to educate and transform the individual and society. There are many statements throughout the Kitáb-i-Íqán addressing these issues, but I have only brought two. You notice that I have to run very fast through these. I hope I had time to give more details. Baha'u'lláh says that in these cities, the cities are the revelation and the holy books of the religions. The spiritual sustenance is bountifully provided, and incorruptible delights have been ordained. The food they bestow is the bread of heaven, and the spirit they impart is God's imperishable blessing upon detached souls. They bestow the gift of unity. Upon the detached souls, they bestow the gift of unity, enrich the destitute, and offer the cup of knowledge unto them who wander in the wilderness of ignorance. Also, he says, is not the object of every revelation to effect a transformation in the whole character of mankind, a transformation that shall manifest itself both outwardly and inwardly, that shall affect both its inner life and external conditions. For if the character of mankind be not changed, the futility of God's universal manifestation would be apparent. You see, the concept of universal manifestation was first revealed by Baha'u'lláh in Kitáb-i-Íqán. It is unprecedented in the history of religions. He also revolutionized the concept of eschatology, redefining the eschaton and the eschatology. Eschaton is historically defined as the end of the time or age. Eschatology is historically defined as the doctrine or set of beliefs related to the end of time, end of the world, resurrection, life and death, and judgment. The concept of eschaton, the end of the time, the age, or the world, is presented in all the past religions. However, in Judeo-Christo-Islamic eschatological traditions, the eschaton is also connected to the appearance of the promised one. The signs and prophecies related to return or coming of the promised one in symbolic and allegorical language were considered as literal events that should precede or accompany his appearance, and that was a big obstacle for everybody. The Old Testament contains the signs and prophecies related to manifestation of their promised Messiah. They were expecting Elijah that was taken with his corporal body to heaven, to descend from heaven prior to appearance of Messiah and open and prepare the way for Messiah. And the signs and prophecies in the book of Joel and Malachi, such as sun and moon don't give light, and moon becomes like a blood, and the word becomes like an oven, burn an oven prior to descent of Elijah. So they were expecting all of these in the first advent of Christ, to see those. And Christian eschatology is more complicated. In addition to those signs that we just mentioned, in Jewish eschatology, there are uncertainties regarding the chronological aspect of the second advent and commencement of the millennium. The eschatological statement in the gospel predicated 4 types of eschatology: realized eschatology, near eschatology, far eschatology, and indefinite eschatology, and 2 types of millennialism, pre-millennial and post-millennial. I wish I had time to go to these. These are very interesting subjects, but I don't have time to go through this. Hopefully, if after this presentation is finished, if there are enough interest to go into these kind of details, I ask that you send an email to Dr. Stockman, and we will see if we can arrange in future another presentation that goes into detail in these subjects. In the Islamic eschatology, although similar to Judeo-Christian eschatology, the imagery is more expanded and the sequence of events are related with more detail. According to Islamic tradition, at the time of the end, heavens will be cleft asunder, the sun shall be folded up, the stars shall fall, and the mountains shall be set in motion. In the Kitáb-i-Íqán, Bahá'u'lláh explains the mysteries of eschatological statements of the sacred scriptures of the past. When is the eschaton, the end of time? What is the heaven that is cleft asunder? What is the sun and moon that will not give light? What are the stars that will fall from heaven? What is the resurrection and the sound of trumpet? Who are the dead that will come to life? What is the rapture? Remember a few years ago, or maybe in late 90s, there were some books and movies that were called Left Behind. And that was dealing with the concept of rapture, that Christ comes in his second coming and lifts up and moves the believers out of this world, and the rest of the world that are left behind, how do they deal with their life and so on. So another subject is what is the judgment and sirat in Islamic traditions. They say that there is a bridge called sirat that is sharper than blade and narrower than a hair, and it spans the between the stage of resurrection to the heaven, and also Baha'u'lláh explained what is heaven and what is hell. Also revolutionizes the concept of theology, foundation of universal or Baha'i theologies presented in Kitáb-i-Íqán, presented the concept of the universal manifestation of God. As I said, it is unprecedented in the history of religions, and Baha'u'lláh gives the theology of the universal manifestation of God. And some scholars, Baha'i scholars in Iran and here, called it manifestational theology. He redefined the concept of divine unity and attainment unto the divine presence, presented the absolute transcendence of God, inaccessible and exalted above the comprehension of all created things, even the manifestations of God. Demonstrated that recognition of the manifestation of God is the ultimate goal of knowledge and spiritual quest, and that manifestation of God is the Godhead in the human world and the world of creation. And by the explanation he gives, he resolves all the puzzles that really troubled the mind of Christians for 2,000 years and Muslims also. So these are very significant new things that Kitáb-i-Íqán covers. He also explains that manifestation of God must be recognized by his own self. The unity of the essence of all manifestation of God, which are appearances of the primal will in the world at different times and under different names. This is a very, it's a new, very important concept in theology that Baha'u'lláh explains. Also explains the relativity of station of firstness and lastness of all manifestations of God. The continuity and progressive process of divine revelation, the relativity of religious truth, revealing and expounding the mysteries of all scriptures. Essential infallibility of manifestation of God. This is also a very new thing, because in all the scriptures, the manifestations of God are not presented as infallible. Moses in chapter 4 of Exodus says that God sent him to go to Pharaoh. He was traveling to go to Pharaoh. In the way, he stopped at an inn or a motel type of thing with his wife and newborn son. And God appeared there, wanted to kill Moses. And then apparently because he failed to circumcise his newborn son, which was a very important law to keep. And so Sapphira, the wife, circumcised the son, and God gave up and left. So regarding the Jesus, also in the gospel, it says that some of the Jesus statements in the gospel indicate that he considered himself just not an infallible person. Somebody came and said, Rabbi, what can I do? What good Rabbi, what can I do to gain the eternal life? And Jesus said unto him, why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. So also with the Prophet Muhammad, the story of the satanic verses are indication of fallibility. The story is that when the early years of Islam, some idolaters came to Muhammad and said that if you recognize some of our idols, we will also recognize you and don't persecute you or don't trouble you anymore. They say that Muhammad revealed the verses that the Lat, Uzza, and Manat, the three important idols, were exalted idol, and their intercession is acceptable to God. And some believers came and said, you always told us that these idols are of no consequence. They are not important. They should be thrown away. Why did you say that? And the enemies of Muhammad and opposition to Islam say that Muhammad said that these were verses that were revealed to me by Satan, and they were called the satanic verses. And you recall that in early 1980s, a Pakistani author called Salman Rushdie wrote a book called Satanic Verses that had some similarity to this early Islamic story, and Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa, a decree that he should be killed, and Salman Rushdie went into hiding for many years. Another thing that Baha'u'lláh mentions in the Kitáb-i-Íqán is the ability of the manifestation of God to perform miracles and allowing only one. And now I have to go back and say that in Kitáb-i-Íqán, Baha'u'lláh very directly and specifically mentions that all the manifestations of God are infallible. They have essential infallibility, which he explains what it is. And it is a very important concept. So those stories about the Moses and Jesus and Prophet Muhammad are of no value. He also mentions the ability of the manifestation of God to perform miracles. Because all the manifestations of God, when they were asked to perform a miracle, they did not accept. Jesus said that this generation of snakes want me to perform a miracle, and I will not give them a miracle. When they went to Muhammad and said, you have to perform a miracle so that we believe in you, he said, I am a human being like you. I am receiving a revelation. Baha'u'lláh says that manifestations of God are able to perform miracle, but their most important miracle is their revelation, their sacred book. And when we deepen on Kitáb-i-Íqán and we see the expanse of the subjects that Kitáb-i-Íqán covers, it really becomes clear that it is a miracle that in 2 days and 2 nights, a book like this can be produced, and it is no way except a miraculous situation for this book. But Baha'u'lláh says that to help people that due to their weakness, they are asking for a miracle, he says that manifestations of God can allow people to ask for a miracle, and they should ask only for one. When he was in Baghdad, some leaders of religion saw that how popular he became, all people were around him, all people were impressed by him. They wanted to do something to discredit him. So they sent a person to Baha'u'lláh and said that these leaders, these ulama, the leaders of religion, want you to perform a miracle. Baha'u'lláh said it is for God to test people, not for people to test God. But due to their weakness, I am allowing them to ask for one miracle. If they get together and sign and agree on one miracle, even if it is to run the course of Tigris River backward, I will perform that, provided that they will sign, that they will submit after that comes true. This guy got up, kissed the knees of Baha'u'lláh and left, and told these ulama, the leaders, that that's what Baha'u'lláh is going to do. So you should choose. They said, oh, what happens if he might be a sorcerer or a magician? Why can we do that? If we do that, then we have to submit. So they didn't. So Baha'u'lláh also in Kitáb-i-Íqán reveals the proper method and attitude for a seeker in the spiritual path of truth. Baha'u'lláh says that the people go ask the leaders of religion that they themselves are ignorant about these signs and allegorical things in the holy books. If they come with humility, ask the new manifestation of God about it, he will help them to understand. He will explain it to them. And this is what happened. The uncle of Bab came to Baha'u'lláh with humility and asked him about this. And Baha'u'lláh revealed Kitáb-i-Íqán, opened all the secrets of the past sacred books, and explained all the eschatological concepts and all the prophecies and how they were all fulfilled. Baha'u'lláh also there has many allusions to his own divine station in Kitáb-i-Íqán. And when we read that, we know very clearly that the declaration is imminent. It seems that the essential objectives of the Kitáb-i-Íqán is to provide guidance and initiate the process of cleansing, purifying, and preparing the soul of man to be able to receive and recognize the word of God and enter the presence of universal manifestation of God in the city of his revelation, that is the universal religion of God, thus achieving the object of Baha'i revelation to effect a fundamental transformation in the individual and social character of mankind. Now we come to study of Kitáb-i-Íqán. The study of Kitáb-i-Íqán was recommended by Baha'u'lláh. He said, blessed is the one who had reviewed it and witnessed its testimony and had studied and pondered its contents. And by Abdu'l-Bahá, who stated, O thou who art seeking after the knowledge of God, immerse thyself in the ocean of the explanation of the beauty of the Merciful, so that thou mayest gather from its depths the pearls of the wisdom of God. The study of Kitáb-i-Íqán can take place on several levels. In one level, a person can read the book and benefit greatly without referring to any other books or materials. However, regarding the Kitáb-i-Íqán, Baha'u'lláh in the same book states, all the scriptures and mysteries thereof are condensed in this brief account. And also, he says that this servant now shares with thee a dewdrop of the fathomless ocean of truth treasured in these holy words, that happily discerning hearts may comprehend all the allusions and the implications of the utterances of manifestation of holiness, so that overpowering majesty of the word of God may not prevent them from attaining unto the ocean of his names and attributes, or nor deprive them of recognizing the Lamb of God, which is the seat of the revelation of his glorified essence. So considering the fact that in the course of exposition and interpretation of theological and religious concepts, Baha'u'lláh employs many theological, philosophical, and religious terms and makes reference to other sacred scriptures as well as historical events. And in the light of the Shoghi Effendi's statement regarding the importance of Kitáb-i-Íqán, that he said that Íqán is the most important book written on the spiritual significance of cause, he says, I do not believe any person can consider himself well-versed in the teachings unless he has studied it thoroughly, and the book is so important that the most minute detail is worthy of consideration. Based on these statements, the study of Kitáb-i-Íqán at deeper level becomes imperative and can be greatly aided by a study or review of the additional source materials. I am happy that the Wilmette Institute is offering a course on Kitáb-i-Íqán with very capable and knowledgeable faculty, Doctors Christopher Bach and Nejati Alkan. And Dr. Bach has written a magnificent book called Symbol and Secret, Quran's Commentary in Baha'u'llah's Kitáb-i-Íqán. So they are doing a great service offering this course. I wish you the best in your studies, and thank you very much for your joining me this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sohrab. This was fantastic. It was really marvelous to have a good summary overview of the Íqán, especially with some of the quotations that you were able to share with us, which are either hard to find in English, about the Íqán, or even some of them that were really only available in Persian or Arabic and that you were able to share in provisional translation. And I think our audience is very much in your debt for understanding the importance of studying this book now. You've inspired me to think about how I'm going to use this course to go over the book myself. I wonder if I can manage to find the time to keep up with the class as it goes through the book. Let me see what sort of questions we have. I think we may have a few here.
Rabbi, I can't see you.
You can see me or you can't see me?
I cannot.
I've got my camera on. Can you see yourself?
No, I cannot see myself.
Down at the bottom of your screen, there's a little 6-petaled go to webinar icon. And if you click on that, I think it'll pop up the videos, the video feeds. My camera is going out to everyone as far as I know. It appeared on my screen when I turned on my camera. Yeah.
But I still, I click on that. This one?
Left, to the left.
Left, okay.
There you go. You got it?
No, it doesn't.
There's another one a little farther to the left on your screen also, because it looks like you've got, oh, no, that just says go to webinar in general. But at any rate, it doesn't matter because our cameras are on and I can see you as well. One person, James Sorrentino, has posted this question. Can you tell us a little bit more about the study guide that you have published?
Yes, several papers and articles and even book chapters written by scholars about the Kitáb-i-Íqán, but those are their understanding that they present to people. But my purpose of writing this book is to enable every person to study Kitáb-i-Íqán by herself or himself, when you read the writings of Bahá'u'lláh, especially in Kitáb-i-Íqán, in one sentence, he might really present a whole lot of concepts and historical background and so on. And when somebody is reading Kitáb-i-Íqán, these materials are available elsewhere, but to stop and go do the research, it will make a break in the study and is not very helpful. So I provided those materials not at a very, very deep level, at a medium level, so that not to burden and make people tired, but also provide enough information. So it was written first in a kind of footnote style, but the Universal House of Justice made a guidance to authors that they should not include the whole text of the sacred book in the commentary or in writing. So I made this style that for every paragraph, the paragraphs are numbered. So for every paragraph, we go under paragraph 1 and mention the important points or those that need reference material. And under those, I'm presenting those materials. And I am hoping that this will be very helpful to provide a personal understanding of Kitáb-i-Íqán for every person.
The one person, there's been some comments coming in now, which is very nice to see. Your camera just went away again, by the way. Sohrab, you're back. Okay.
Okay, but I cannot see. Okay, that's good.
We can see. We can see you. The one person has indeed asked for more information in a future webinar about eschatology, so we may want to try to do a webinar just on that. And I should add that our January web talk by Joanne Borovica will be focusing on biblical interpretation and biblical passages, so that will at least relate to this subject of eschatology to some extent. Perjea says she's found this to be a very enlightening talk, and she's requesting that Mr. Kourosh provide additional details regarding eschatology when he's available to do so. So she's also interested in eschatology. You seem to have found hit on a good topic there that the Baha'is want to know more about. Then Atusa says, thank you for the in-depth background to the spiritual history of this work. And she mentions the Tablet of the Truth Seeker, of course, which is a section of the Kitáb-i-Íqán. Someone else asked to see the PowerPoint, and we will have the PowerPoint up on the Wilmette Institute's web talk page. If you go to click on web talks on our main public website, it will provide a list of all the upcoming web talks, and you'll see one for today's talk. You click on that, and that will have all the information about this talk, including a link to this recording once we have that up, and we'll also include a link to the PowerPoint, which will be put up as a PDF, since not everybody has PowerPoint software. Paul Mantle asks an interesting question that I never heard before. He says that, this reference to the Íqán being revealed in 48 hours, he says that it probably was revealed in fewer hours than that, because they must have been some time for Baha'u'lláh to eat and sleep, and that Abdu'l-Bahá had to write the whole thing out by hand. So I suppose to protect Abdu'l-Bahá from writer's cramp, if nothing else, it would have taken more, would have been a chunk of that time right there. So Baha'u'llah's revelation may have been quicker. Do you know anything about the details of like how much of that 48 hours was, how the time was devoted?
I was going to talk about it, but I didn't have time. There is a type of script or writing that's called Khat Tanzil. Dr. Christopher Bach, in his book, has provided a sample of it and has explained it. You know, in Mr. Taherzade's revelation of Baha'u'lláh, he has also provided a picture of Khat Tanzil, that the amanuenses of Baha'u'lláh were several of them sitting there and writing with a exceptional speed. And after one page was finished, they would go another page and so on, and then they would compare it because somebody might drop the word and somebody else picked it up, and so compare it. And it is possible that Baha'u'lláh was just speaking and saying the words, and the amanuenses were writing it in the Khat Tanzil, in the script of revelation. And then afterwards, Abdu'l-Bahá wrote it in longhand on his own handwriting, and the manuscript of Kitáb-i-Íqán by the hand of Abdu'l-Bahá that was brought to Guardian in 1948 was that original one. And our friend is quite right that in the span of 2 days and 2 nights, the people probably didn't sleep, but it was taking a lot of time. That means that Baha'u'lláh finished revelation earlier than 2 days and 2 nights, and then Abdu'l-Bahá had to write it with longhand. And Dr. Jiakuri, in his book Shoghi Effendi, gives a very interesting account of that evening that Shoghi Effendi received this manuscript that was sent by the granddaughter of the Haji Mirza Sayyid Muhammad, and was then placed in the archives of the Mount Carmel. But we don't have the exact time of how many hours was spent on what, but we can imagine by the size of the book and by the writings that it was revealed at a very, very fast pace, and then was inscribed in the Revelation writings that you can see it. The amanuenses of Baha'u'lláh kind of invented a shorthand for writing the Revelation, and then Abdu'l-Bahá wrote it with his long hand. Yeah.
And if my calculation is correct, Abdu'l-Bahá would have been 4 months short of his 17th birthday at the time. He would have been 16 years old, right? 1844, January of 1861. 1860, he would have been 16. So in 1861, he would have been 17.
Yeah, again, about the chronology, about the date of the revelation, it is not very clear whether it was end of 61 or January of 62, or Dr. Bach is also trying to date that, but Guardian in God Passes By says 1862, and so that's the date that we have to go with.
Mm-hmm. Though we have now the letter of the nephew to the uncle of the Bab, dated, I think it was January of 1861, saying he just got the manuscript, and the Guardian didn't have access to that particular archival document because it was in the Afnan family papers, I guess.
Okay, great.
I believe that's the date. So at any rate, even if it's 1862, Abdu'l-Bahá is still 17 years old. When you think about it, that's pretty amazing.
Right.
17 going on 18. Pretty amazing that this young man would be given the responsibility of preparing the final version to give to the uncle of the Bab. It's pretty impressive. Yeah. That tells you something about Abdu'l-Bahā's station even at that point, before the declaration of Baha'u'lláh.
Knowing that, somebody asked Baha'u'lláh when he was in Constantinople, when Abdu'l-Bahá was 18 years old, about the holy tradition of the hidden treasure.
Right.
God says that I was hidden treasure, I wanted to be known, so I created the whole creation to know me and worship me. And Baha'u'lláh asked Abdu'l-Bahá to write the commentary. And this commentary, which is 52 pages, is printed on the second volume of the Makatib Abdu'l-Bahá. You will be amazed. Well, we shouldn't be amazed. It was Abdu'l-Bahá, but he was only 18 years old. He never went to any school or seminary or anywhere. And he writes that commentary on the tradition of Holy Treasure, encapsulating all the learning of the past. And then in one paragraph, he sets them all aside. He does that to show that he is aware of those, but he sets them aside and then he writes what that tradition means and how it is understood in Baha'i faith.
Masoud Kazemzadeh has an interesting request, I guess you could say. In my limited understanding, the most interesting aspect to many of the friends are the specific proofs of Baha'u'llah's invalidity of all of the religious founders of their religions. If it is possible, it would be great to have some points referred to on this subject about the validity of the other religions.
Yeah, Baha'u'lláh, in one of the paragraphs of Kitáb-i-Íqán, says that the Jews were waiting for all the signs to come to material fulfillment, and they are still waiting. So many revelations. Baha'u'lláh says that so many revelations were between Moses and this time. So many revelations that the Jews and other people missed them. So when we look at the time of Christ, they were waiting. So if you look at the Christo-Islamic ideas, there were only two revelations: Christ, Muhammad, and Bob at the time that three revelations that Baha'u'lláh wrote that. But he said many revelations. That means that it includes Buddhism, Buddha, it includes Zoroaster, it might include the revelations that came to the native people of America and other parts of the world that we don't know. Baha'u'lláh says so many revelations have come between this time and now, and they missed it.
There's several different comments here by Sohrab Kourosh, which I'm trying to put together. How can you balance that advice? I'm not sure what that advice refers to, with the necessary understanding of spiritual history to understand the work. Sorry, the whole question is this: need to have some background to understand teachings, I guess, of Baha'u'lláh. And how do you balance that with the understanding of the spiritual history to understand the work? Something like that. I'm not quite sure what Atusa's question is. That's the best I can make of that.
I guess that means that to better understand the spiritual significance of the teachings, it is better to have a background understanding of the previous scriptures and the foundation of ideas and concepts.
Mehdad Batani asks this. He says, "Thank you, Dr. Kourosh, for providing us with such opportunity and sharing with us your vast knowledge in all aspects of the faith. My question is regarding Shoghi Effendi's writing describing the Kitáb-i-Íqán as the most important book written on the spiritual significance of the cause. Could you please elaborate on this and how one can feel such spirituality through this book that was written in response to the questions of Khalid Akbar, the grand uncle?"
Yeah, I think I can only speak about my own experience, that when you read Kitáb-i-Íqán, if you try to deepen go to the background material and understand that for every sentence or statement that Baha'u'lláh makes, it is a vast body of the reference material that you should know to understand it. That will bring, open up a new vista for you to understand it and really come to understand and partake of a spiritual power that is contained in the Kitáb-i-Íqán.
Atusa has clarified her question. She notes that in the Tablet of the True Seeker, it says to put away all knowledge. And then if we are supposed to put away all knowledge, then why do we need to know about the spiritual history in order to understand the Íqán? So that's her question, that apparent opposite bits of advice that you have between the Íqán and the Guardian about.
Yeah, but you have to understand that word of knowledge that is used there in the Islamic era that Kitáb-i-Íqán was revealed. Knowledge was known as what the leaders of religion considered as knowledge, as ilm. And Baha'u'lláh says in Kitáb-i-Íqán that there are two types of knowledge: positive knowledge and satanic knowledge. Positive knowledge are the physical knowledge, the positive knowledge, the knowledge of the truth, and the positive knowledge is like the material or physics or chemistry or mathematics or so on. But then he mentions that those things that the leaders of religion consider as knowledge are the ones that people have to give away and put aside. For example, when the Bab was in Isfahan, the leaders of religion saw that he is becoming very popular. People are believing in him. They wanted to discredit him. So they started to say that he doesn't have any knowledge. He is not a manifestation of God, and he doesn't know anything. And then they asked the governor to allow them to come and interview him or argue with him. And so the governor arranged for a meeting, and Nikolai, the Orientalist, has written about that meeting. And he says that these leaders of religion were so stupid that they came to test the Bab with their own knowledge. And what was their question that they asked? They asked a question that in Persian is called Tayul Ars. They will believe that Imam Reza, one of the Imams from Kufa in Iraq, went to Mashhad, and he went with 3 steps. And they were asking the Bab whether the earth was moving under his feet fast, or he had long legs. And the Bab considered them so stupid that he said that this is not a question that I would like to answer.
Interesting.
And one of the enemies of the faith, Sultan, that wrote a book against the Bab and his revelation, also says that these leaders of religion were so stupid that from someone who claims to be the promised one of Islam, to be a manifestation of God, asking these kind of questions.
Yep.
So these are the knowledge that Baha'u'lláh says you have to throw it away.
Paul also asks this question, very interesting. He notes that Nader Saidi, in his book, I guess, has shared an observation about the prefatory passages beginning part 1 of the Íqán and part 2 of the Íqán. He says the main theme of part 1 of the Íqán is detachment, and the main theme of part 2 of the Íqán is sovereignty. And he's wondering whether you found this to be a useful distinction in your study of the book.
Baha'u'lláh employs a method that now in the new educational system is recommended. That is, in one paragraph, he gives the main point of what he is going to talk about. Then he explains what he is going to talk about. He explains what he wants to explain. Then at the end, he goes and again briefly concludes what he said. So in the beginning, he presents an abstract in one paragraph. Then he goes and explains what he wants to explain. Then at the end, in conclusion, in one paragraph, he will sum up all the arguments that he has made. So in both parts of Kitáb-i-Íqán, that first paragraph is like an abstract that points to the direction of the important points. In this first paragraph of Kitáb-i-Íqán, after about 10-15 paragraphs, the abstract is explained in 10-15 paragraphs, and then Bahá'u'lláh goes to other subjects. In the second part also, it takes about 12 paragraphs to talk about the sovereignty of the promised one and the power and authority of the manifestation of God. Then he goes to explain other things as well. So Kitáb-i-Íqán is also, Dr. Saidi mentions that Kitáb-i-Íqán is expressing on the authority and position of manifestation, and it presents a kind of manifestational theology. That was what the late martyr of the faith scholar Mr. Bakhtaver was also talking about.
I think that's most of our questions. I don't see any more. Oh, no, another one has come in since then. Masoud Kazemzadeh says, how can we define what is truth? The Gospel of John, chapters 8 through 32, seek ye the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So shall we see the truth in all the religions? The truth is in all, and the truth is one. So that's his particular comment about truth.
So I can only advise that we should read Kitáb-i-Íqán more than once, and we will see what the truth is.
Nagme Zaer thanks you very much. Which book do you recommend to read along with the Kitáb-i-Íqán to gain a better understanding?
Well, I don't know. I have provided a self-study notes that might be helpful.
And then there's also Hooper Dunbar has done something.
Mr. Dunbar has done a great job in his companion to Kitáb-i-Íqán. Its only thing is that it's brief. Mm-hmm. It's not extended, and for some people like me, I like to see more explanation and more detail. Otherwise, he has done a magnificent job in his book, The Companion to Kitáb-i-Íqán, and I highly recommend it. Yes.
Yeah. And then in John Hatcher's book, The Ocean of His Words, there's a whole section on the Íqán, it seems to me.
Exactly.
As well. So there's that. And I'm not sure what else there is.
Dr. Saidi's book, the
Logos and
Civilization, has 2 long chapters about Kitáb-i-Íqán, which is very enlightening.
Yeah.
And also Horace Hawley has written a kind of paper about Kitáb-i-Íqán. And I think Dr. Fazil Naqdi from Australia has prepared a book like the Ruhi books about Kitáb-i-Íqán. And so many scholars and great teachers have written, and also a late scholar of the faith, Mr. Shoghi, that I have dedicated my book to him. He has produced 4 volumes of Qamus-i-Íqán, that is Encyclopedia on Iran, which is great, but has more Islamic tone and Shia references and so on. But Kitáb-i-Íqán is a universal book, so we have to look at the universality nature of Kitáb-i-Íqán, which is not only focused on Shia or Islam.
And there's also an ancient little book called These Perspicuous Verses, which I think was a section of the Íqán that Robert McLaughlin had written a commentary on, if I remember right. That came out in the early 70s or mid 70s.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I think it was part of the Íqán. We're really very lucky when you consider how much has come out in the last 20 years on the Íqán. We now have really extensive resources for studying it in English, in addition to the book itself, of course. We have one more question here. Steve Bedingfield has asked a question here. If I do this, it'll be a problem. Hold on a second here. He asks about the satanic verses in the Quran, but says Baha'u'lláh on the Lohim Mawlud seems to put these verses away. This is the night wherein the limbs of Jibt were made to tremble, and the most great idol fell upon the dust, and the foundations of iniquity were shattered, and Manot lamented in its utmost being, and the back of Uzzah was broken, and the face blackened, and the morn of divine guidance hath dawned. So I was wondering if you have any comments about Baha'u'llah's comments about the satanic verses.
Yes, Baha'u'lláh, as I mentioned in Kitáb-i-Íqán and other places, speaks about the essential infallibility of manifestation of God. So when Muhammad, as a manifestation of God, is infallible, has essential infallibility, that means that the whole story of satanic verses is baseless and should be thrown away. Right.
And Jim Muehlbach also reminds us about Christopher Buck's book, Course, Symbol, and Secret, that you'd already mentioned, as another one that's been produced. Well, I want to thank you again, Dr. Kourosh, very much for this really very, very enlightening review of the high points of the Kitáb-i-Íqán and the reasons why we really need to be studying it in far more depth. I'm very grateful for your contributions to that particular subject, and I'm sure our audience is very grateful as well. We have in August a talk by Susan Monek about Zoroastrian cosmology, which of course relates to the issues of the Judgment Day and bodily resurrection and all kinds of concepts in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and therefore, Baha'i commentary on those concepts as well. In September, Louise Prophet LeBlanc will be talking about her artwork on the 7 caribou spirit bowls and how she uses these spirit bowls as a way to express reconciliation in some of the teachings of the 7 valleys. In October, John Hatcher is going to give us a talk on why the bicentenary of Baha'u'llah's, the birth of Baha'u'lláh, what it means to me. This is a different topic than we had scheduled, and the other topic that he had proposed, which is on one of his books, we will do at a later date. But this way we will be able to focus the October talk specifically on the bicentenary, which occurs exactly 7 days after John's talk, or the weekend after John's talk. And then on October 29th, Paul Hanley will be talking about his book 11, about the whole problem of the Earth having 11 billion people in another couple of decades and the enormous environmental problems that could cause. Then in November, we will have 3 talks by Robert Atkinson based on his book From Duality to Oneness. I'm not quite sure if that's the title of his book, but we'll have 3 talks about that, and we'll be giving more details about that later. We have talks coming up in October also. We're going to have a talk by a psychologist in October. I already mentioned the January web talk by Joanne Borovica about biblical passages. We're also going to have Rob Weinberg talking about Mark Tobey and his white writing in February. So that's going to be quite interesting talk about the impact of the Baha'i faith on modern art, abstract art. And then in March, we're going to have 2 talks by Mariette Leong of Australia, one about her father, the hand of the cause, Featherstone, another one about Clara Dunn, whom she also knew. So those should be quite interesting. To mention some upcoming courses quickly, our course on the Kitáb-i-Íqán starts on Tuesday, the 1st of August, and we hope more people will be interested in signing up for that. Then we have some courses on World Federation, the need for a world government, basically. A course on Zoroastrianism that Susan Monek will be doing in relation to her web talk. A creative writing course in September, course on the Baha'i faith and social change, which is a brand new course of ours, and the course on sustainable development. So we have some very exciting talks coming up. In fact, throughout the fall, we'll have some really very, very important talks and courses available to the public to take. And with that, I'll wrap up today's web talk and thank everybody again for participating. We hope you all have a good remainder of the weekend, and we'll see you here at this YouTube channel again in the future. This talk will be on our YouTube channel in about 24 hours, so you can always find the recording there. Thank you, everybody, and have an excellent weekend.